Welcome back to Studio Chatter. We are all dealing with the world in a pandemic, but suicide continues to cause pain in our society. To talk more about how to find help, welcome Haley Thomas to the Chatter.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. This month is Suicide Awareness Month, and you were referred to us from one of our good friends, Susan Chapman, to help educate us more on the topic because of the loss of your son. So will you share a little bit more about your story?
Sure. So I lost my son Alex in 2015. So it's been a little over 5 years ago. He was 13, almost 14. It was just 5 days before his birthday. So, and you know, that is just something no mom or parent, as you know, the worst thing that could ever happen. But after the initial thing, I started to think, what am I going to do with this experience? Like, how can you go through something like that, and it must be, what can you do from what you've learned? And I just kind of let that sit, and then a few years later, one of Alex's really good friends, his name is Caden Garcia, had, through something his dad was already working on, started this project called Your Tribe Clothing, where they would print t-shirts, and on the t-shirts you would pick a word that that resonates with you, and they use a semicolon. So for example, I wish I would have worn one of my shirts, but one of mine that I chose was kindness, and wherever there's an I or something, you'd just put the semicolon. Other examples were like running, or whatever it is that you do that keeps you going and is this positive thing in your life. And with the proceeds of this little thing that they started, they came in the circles of Susan. So that's kind of how she comes into play. Mm-hmm. She was doing these QPR trainings. She'd been, started that here in Spanish Fork, and they were like, this is a great thing. We can take these proceeds and we can take these QPR trainings to schools, or so they started doing that. And so when I saw this, I just thought, that is just a great thing. This is like a friend of Alex's, it's not too big for me. I just knew I had to just do something that was simple and that, meant that would just resonate with me. So that's how I met Susan. We've done QPR trainings through there to schools. We've also done them a lot here in Spanish Fork through the boards and stuff. People, there's been several suicides in the past few years with, with kids, and so it's been great to be able to even just get in to those, wards and families that are feeling that, and kind of just give them. That's the point of it, I think, is just to show that there's hope. What can we do to help prevent, and what can we do to give hope to, these poor families that have lost, or, or people that are struggling already in the middle of it.
Club that you ever would want to be in.
Exactly.
But I think that other parents or family members turn to you for a lot of hope and comfort to just visit with, talk to.
Yeah, another thing that we are able to do, Susan and I, and there's some other, great women that we work with at the city too, but we have visited some of the families. So we go into their homes, after, when they're ready to, and just, sometimes it's great to just actually look at a face or talk to someone that has been through it, because that's, no one knows except for unless you've been there exactly what that is. So we've been able to visit with some great families, and so that's another thing that we've been able to do. It's been great.
Well, it's certainly one of those topics that nobody ever really wants to dig into the nitty gritty, or talk about maybe the dark side, maybe the signs of how things maybe get to that point, maybe the anxiety or the depression. What maybe are some of the signs? How it
or
maybe
things
starts.
That we maybe overlook or feel like,
Right.
They're just sad, or they're just having a hard day, or the friends at school are not being nice. Are there really more signs that we're not seeing that we should have seen? Yeah,
I think there's several things, and that's one thing that's great in QPR. We do kind of talk about different signs. One thing that stands out is sometimes people just throw it out like, oh, I just want to kill myself or something, and a lot of times we just brush that off, and that's just, you just can't, because you never know. So I just we really stress, take that seriously and, depress them when they're pulling back, or sometimes they'll start to maybe like something that I found out later is like my son would he gave away his hat and his sweatshirt, or so friends might notice why are they just kind of saying, why are they giving me these prized possessions? That's one thing, they might give away prized possessions. Or
did you see signs with your son now looking back?
I knew he was struggling with depression for probably about a year before. So we had, done some of those things. We had him in counseling.
Okay.
We had him on antidepressants, and trying to do all those things that,
Trying
all
to
the
get
steps,
to the root of
trying to
it,
do all
right.
those things, and we never found his answers, and so that's why I just think if I can talk to one person and find answers for one child that, there's a lot, when you look at statistics, we see a lot of teens and we hear about that, but some of the major groups are more, midlife crisis men and older men. So those age categories, sometimes, we don't really realize that that's really a place that we need to really pay attention as well.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 13 just seems so
Like life is just beginning.
Right,
But
just
it
seems
is, I think
so
that junior
young.
high years is so hard because you're going from the elementary where I feel like we kind of, not baby them, but they're in a protective zone maybe a little bit more. Though I know my son was bullied a little bit at that age. But I think junior high, everyone's trying to find who they really are. And all of a sudden, all these different groups of people are coming together from different walks. I just feel like that's a huge transition.
Yeah, it really is. Something I knew kind of signs of depression, but something I didn't know as much about that I've learned more about is anxiety. So
Yes.
a lot of the things I couldn't understand, like, why don't you want to do these things? Or, and then when I started learning about anxiety, I was like, oh, that's maybe something I could have learned more about and treated,
That it's real, that it's not just you're
Yeah,
nervous to do that. Like
he didn't want to go to school, which I'm like, what kid doesn't want to go to school? Or my stomach hurts, but that it was a pretty big deal. And I just, you think, do you push them? Do you, whatever. So I think if I could have known even a little bit more about that, I mean, like I said, I don't know what his answers were, but that's why these things and these trainings and all these resources that we can find. And the state is doing a lot of great things too. We have, I think I saw today that they just approved this. It's like a 911 that you can call. It's another, I don't remember, 988 or something like that,
I just saw that.
That just passed. And so,
and I don't know what the digits are now
Yeah.
either, but it's close to the Utah Safety app, but it's 3 new digits that have been approved. But yeah, there are so many different age groups, but you have to wonder, like, in a pandemic where things are so overwhelming anyway, and then you add maybe just the anxiety on top of that, or maybe depression with losing a job for the adults, or maybe there is someone being bullied at school, or just life just being so overwhelming in general, how we
it
take that
intensifies
off.
those
Right.
feelings of hopelessness, I guess.
So we've had some great, stories about after people have attended a QPR class, they've, what you kind of learn what you need to do too, right? And really just talking to them and being even direct, like, say, if you're worried about someone, ask them, are you contemplating, like, come right out. We're sometimes afraid to say, are you thinking about killing yourself? Like, that's a hard thing to say. And so just have those conversations with your kids, come right out. And, people also worry, like, oh, if I bring it up, does that mean they're more likely to? And that's
Right.
definitely
I know.
not.
I think that was a myth.
Yes,
That
definitely.
the more we talk about it, then the more it happens.
Yep,
Right?
and
Yeah.
yep, definitely a myth. So talk
And
to your kids.
you're still doing QPR trainings even during COVID,
Yep,
correct?
we've modified them a little bit.
Okay.
We did one just yesterday where it was an award, and
Okay.
we had it in the chapel where people who wanted to come could come and sit far apart.
Okay.
And then we also had Zoom, so people could just come in and we have moderators as well, so we have a few people there, and then we have people online that can help ask questions and moderate that. It was a little different, but I think like, especially like we said, this time with the
People are
pandemic,
even
like
more
we need
anxious, they need
to be
connection.
doing this. So we've been trying to find ways to do
Well,
that.
that QPR training, I took it, I think 2 years ago or so. And earlier this year, my younger brother in his 40s was going through a major midlife crisis and 2 times tried to take his life. And the first time, I was so scared to go talk to him, but because of the training, I felt like I had the tools to be brave enough to do it. Does that even make sense?
Well,
'Cause-
for sure. In the class, if you've been to one, we actually do a role play because
Yes.
you
Which
know,
role
like-
play? I hate that.
All
But
right.
when you're doing it with people and they said, you have to ask, are you suicidal? Like, no, you don't flat out ask it like that. You beat around the bush.
Yeah.
Right. How are you feeling? But yes, but sometimes
You
you need
need-
to be asked directly so that you can
Yeah.
answer the yes or no.
And
Yeah.
it just takes a lot of, if you are like sharing that burden and not just having to
Yes.
keep that quiet.
Because
I think it's-
everything becomes bigger when it's in here and here all by itself. When you start to talk about it, I feel like it becomes a little bit smaller, or there's someone that connects with you that can help bear it.
Yeah.
Well, is
Yeah.
it fair to say then? So now that your brother has experienced that he made those attempts, and it's more comfortable to talk about it now. Does he talk about it more? Is it more comfortable to talk about it? Is there therapy? Is it more therapeutic?
We don't talk about it now. I mean, we did during that, but I mean, I check in
Okay.
more, and
But ongoing, for somebody,
Yeah.
I think it would be probably more comfortable to confront it
Or
then.
is there shame that goes along with it now? If you get like,
I
you know what I
know,
mean?
yeah.
Because sometimes we're afraid, oh, like, yes,
If
I
it's-
did do that,
yeah, if
and
it's
now
in-
I'm okay, you guys. But is it harder for him to go back?
I don't know.
And then-
and I think that's the scary thing is, right, none of us have all the answers, right?
Right.
We're just doing our best.
Well, that's, we didn't talk about what even QPR stands for,
Yeah.
but it's similar to CPR, and we have its question, persuade, and refer. So as with CPR, you're not the doctor, you're not the surgeon, you don't have the skills to save their life, but you have the things that you can do to get them to the help that they need. And so that's what this is as well. We want to be there, we want to be a sounding board, but we aren't the professionals, so that's hopefully,
So
with
like
your
you're the
brother
first
or whatever.
line to get to them,
Yeah.
and then it's to find them the help that.
And then hopefully they can find that person that they can connect to, and maybe it is so awkward to talk to your family, but if they have the person that they can connect and feel like they can be open with about. So
With October being Suicide Awareness Month, there's a lot of things I'm sure that we'll be made more aware of throughout the month, and websites that we need to check out, and news articles and links and people
just
to talk to
educate
just be
ourselves a
educated.
little.
So
Yep.
thank you for
Yes.
being one of those pieces
Yes.
and one of the tools in the toolbox that people can maybe make those first steps.
Thanks so
And we're
much.
sorry about the loss of your son.
thank you.
Definitely.
We miss him.
There's that.
There's more studio chatter